like to call to order a special meeting for the Park and Road Impact Fee Review Board, recognizing that we have all three members here present. The first item of business will be the election of officers. And do I have a motion for president?
I'll make a motion for you to be president for this year.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Could I get a motion for vice president? Who is the current vice president?
1 second, I'll have to look that up quick. Currently, the vice is Tony Murley.
I second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Do we have anyone that has signed up to speak at the meeting?
I have no one that's been noted or requested to speak.
Okay. Do we have any correspondence that we need to acknowledge?
Not at this time. Sorry, I might just have difficulties.
We do not have any old business, which will take us to our first item under new business, which is the appeal for the Wild Air multifamily project.
When you press the button, oh, there we go. Good afternoon, Justin Moffett, CEO of Old Town, Ed Hamilton with me, partner in the Wild Air project. I placed a document in front of you, just a high-level summary of request. Some of this is additional information as we have been in the process of getting final plans to construction drawing set and then subsequently bid on the market. So this is really additional information beyond the original request. High-level summary, we have 2 roundabouts that we're constructing on Marysville Road that serve both sides of the Wild Air project, both the east and west phases. In addition to the roundabout cost, there's, well, the original budgeted cost, we wanted to articulate some additional costs that were unknown when we went through the entitlement process. Thought for clarity, it would make sense to show you a delta between what we had initially projected, went through the entitlement process versus where we have landed. And I would say this has been a very collaborative process with the town planning and engineering staff. So none of this was a surprise to us as we went through the process, but there were some requests that drove some costs. Probably the most significant component was the MOT and incremental cost of keeping Marysville Road open. That came as a request from the town council, but to keep that road open during construction added a little over $500,000 of additional cost to that construction project. So we tried on the second page to outline where numbers have come in with best bid from qualified contractors, and then the below section, some additional costs that weren't projected initially based on additional requests through process. There was not a requirement for landscaping beyond just side of the roundabout. So I would just go on record and say that's the only maybe perceived superfluous additional costs beyond hard construction costs. That's an allowance for additional landscape, but everything else is a hard bid cost. We upgraded some of the neighborhood entrances to a collector road status at the request of the town engineering leadership. The design for the roundabouts increased some of our stormwater infrastructure sizing. And then even though this is public right-of-way project, we're still paying the municipal inspection fees and some performance and payment bond fees, and those rates have escalated in the last year as well. So ultimately, we have a $1.8 million delta over our planned budget, and that is why we have requested a full waiver of our road impact fees, a little over $1.2 million. Pause there and take questions, comments, or
Are there any questions for the petitioner?
I have one quick question. I'm sorry, my mic isn't on, so I'm gonna try to speak loudly. When you're requesting $1.2 million, is that for just the multifamily buildings, or is that in addition to include all of the single family as well?
we have requested the entirety of the Wild Air project. That's what equals the 1.2 million.
Okay, I think there was some confusion on that. Just due to the issue of when I originally had discussions with other members on your team, we were only talking about the multifamily, so this is new information that we're talking about the entirety of the development,
Or are we even authorized?
which includes single-family residential, multifamily residential, and commercial components.
As a board, are we even authorized to give consideration to this type of request? This sounds like an economic development or a matter out of our hands.
Well, I would think that the case that they are making is that they are making improvements to the roadway that is part of the network that was included in the long-range transportation plan, hence the used in the calculation of the road impact fee. So if they, as the developer, are making those improvements in lieu of the town, then what they're requesting is an offset of the impact fee for the cost of those improvements.
Okay.
Zach, is that correct? Or did I misstate anything?
I might ask Lance to speak to some of this, but I'm not sure if these improvements were included in the long-range transportation plan. Lance, do you have information on that?
So I think then, as Lance, before you answer, probably what we're looking for, are these costs eligible to be considered?
In my opinion, and I believe we have our town attorney is online, is that correct? Joe, did I see John Oberlander online? Yeah, so the town in its creation and calculations for the road impact fee takes a town-wide look at the levels of service of all intersections and roadway segments, and identifies within a 10-year horizon where capacity limitations either exist now or may exist in the future as a result of imminent development. So in my opinion, no, this is not an eligible for in lieu of or credits, because this was not part of the zone improvement plan. This is essentially the entrance to a development. Marysville Road is a north-south throughway. There's no scenario in the future where sort of east-west connectivity or network benefits would be realized from these roundabouts. So this is really, in my opinion, not an eligible ask. This is essentially a signalized entrance to development because the development wants that level of service in the future as things progress. And I will say they did work with us well because we said if there ever is going to be intersection control into this development in the future, we wanted things set up to be a roundabout. Obviously, the town has invested well over $10 million recently in this corridor to perpetuate traffic flow, and we never wanted to see the introduction of a signal in a corridor that we've invested such a great deal of time and effort and money into. And I would point out, too, that one intersection management, one roundabout, provides that intersection control equally to the development on both sides of the road. The second roundabout was purely, I believe, we never mentioned a second roundabout. That was driven by the developer. I believe that was a want from them. They wanted to, whether it was the harmonious look to things, the feel for it, but one single roundabout would have provided that controlled access to both sides of the development.
How much were the roundabouts? I don't know that they're listed on here. I see, there seemed like some things on the road improvements, like lighting and things, would that normally be factored in? But I'd like to know what the roundabout costs were.
You looked at me, so I'm going to answer, but I think maybe the petitioner might want to respond to that as well. The elements such as lighting, what road impact fees can cover as an eligible cost are those elements necessary and vital to the operation of a roundabout in this case. obviously drainage, you have to have drainage, you have to have those type of improvements when you build a roundabout or any infrastructure. But decorative lighting, ornamental lighting, those types of things, if we were going to build this and utilize impact fees to build a roundabout, we have to carve those costs out because they're not eligible, they're not assigned to the calculations as part of the larger effort. There was one other thought I had, which has escaped me. Oh, no, I mean, what I like I like to make things as simple as possible. And in my mind, the litmus test for the validity of credits or in lieu of is, could we accept those impact fees and then turn right around and build this project with those impact fees? And I don't believe the town legally can do that.
I'm a little caught off guard by the last statement, as far as the town couldn't turn around and do that. And that's, from my experience, absolutely the case, but probably not relevant because I felt like I just heard a recommendation that these would not be qualified, and therefore a recommendation from staff to deny the request is how I heard it. Yeah, so completely disagree about how the statute's written. And the fact that these were recommendations and requests from us made by town staff members during the process to put this infrastructure in place because there was a desire to not see any sort of negative impact to the Marysville Road corridor. So beyond the fact that we believe that per statute these are reimbursable expenses, in good faith, we have acquiesced to multiple requests for design requirements that have increased our costs significantly over what we would ever expected, to the tune of $1.8 million. Yeah, candidly blindsided by his statement. I would request that we table this for a month because Mr. Lutz has already suggested that there was some confusion over whether this was tied to the multifamily or the entirety. I want to get statute right here and have counsel here representing us because I was candidly blindsided by his statement because we've done this in good faith and spent a lot of dollars on design in good faith at their request, and so I don't feel like that's an accurate representation of statute.
Unless someone objects, could I get a motion to table this item to our next meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next item is the Central Indiana Orthopedics. I was wondering, could we take like maybe a 2-minute break? I need to return this phone call very quickly.
Sure. I don't know if we can pause the recording. It would just be a lapse in that time. We may be able to edit it later. Say what now? Do we have the ability to pause the webinar for a time being, or will it just be running? Okay, that's fine.
Good afternoon. I'm Victor Moran. I'm the CEO for Central Indiana Orthopedics. Here asking for an appeal for the road impact fees related to a project. We're opening an office on 625 South Main Street. Our project entails just to remodel the interior of the office to accommodate our patient flow, and it does not affect any infrastructure at all. Per the ordinance 5.3, these type of expenses should be, are exempt from the impact fee assessment. The project is in motion right now, so we are asking for these fees to be appealed. And I'm referring to section 5.3 of the ordinance. I think our letter states several, the stands that we're taking.
Do you mean what the cost of the project was for the documentation?
It's been about $450,000 so far.
And it was all interior?
Yes. And prior to us occupying the space, it was a medical facility as well. So we're not changing the type of business that we're seeing, and we don't anticipate our patient volume is going to be any higher than what was there prior to us coming there.
A question of clarification on that. Previous records of the town, not saying that you're incorrect, but the last user that we knew of based on building permits was Remax. What was the previous use that you all were familiar with that occupied that space?
It was Modern Aesthetics. And I don't know how long they occupied the space, but that's who the prior tenant was.
You stated that they were a medical spa.
Yes.
I apologize for any confusion on the original road impact fee. You had stated that it was, or whoever had completed that document stated it was an office use transitioning to a medical office use. So that's where that calculation came from. You were transitioning from a traditional office use, and as our records had indicated, office remix. But then with this, in light of this new information, they likely did not seek a building permit when they did their renovations. There likely was not a need for it, and that was something that we did not have that kind of data, and at the time when you submitted, we did not have that additional information.
Right.
So if that's the case, then if we're going from medical use to medical use and the square footage is not increased, then there would be no delta, correct?
Do you need evidence of who occupied the space? If records were showing, is there any evidence?
It would be nice, I think, for both of us to have
Yeah.
something on record showing that.
If you can provide some kind of documentation to show that that medical user was in place at one time, that would definitely help shore up our side of things so we can button it up a little tighter.
I can contact the landlord and see what kind of information they have. That's what the name was when we got there before we did started the remodeling. So I'll try to get something from the landlord to see what
That would be greatly
they have a
appreciated.
lease or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
then
can do that.
could we pass a motion that approved the request subject to satisfactory documentation being provided to the town staff?
John Oberlander, do you believe that that would be an appropriate motion?
I do think that would be an appropriate motion.
Could you speak a little louder? It was hard to hear you.
Sorry. Yes, I do think that would be an appropriate motion for you to make, that you could approve the appeal pending receipt of the documents that the petitioner discussed.
Then I would entertain a motion.
I move that we grant the petitioner's request, subject to verification with documentation.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. I believe that is the last item on our agenda, unless there's something that has come up since we started. Hearing none, then we are adjourned.